Hello all, Alison here. Welcome back to Words and Pictures for a few minutes of fun. A few minutes of fun with some distress paints and probably texture and maybe embossing glazes and so on and so forth today. And yeah, I am just having fun creating backgrounds and exploring and experimenting. If this is something you enjoy, please consider contributing a cup of coffee every now and then. Thank you so much to those of you who are either regular or irregular supporters. It's deeply appreciated. It's the 1st of May as I'm filming this, and so my resolution is to try to remember to just mention it at the start of a video instead of the end as I go. I'm so grateful for your company on this creative journey, and any contributions obviously mean a great deal to me, but it's completely not compulsory. Having said that, let's play. The distress paints are an amazing medium. You know that when I'm just painting, I very, very often use the PaperArtsy chalk paints, but distress paint is a whole other formulation that kind of does marbling effects and reactive in water effects that are really like no others. When they arrive, you can hear there's a little ball in them. They need mixing around, and yeah, they just recently put back in the missing colours, Ranger Ink and Tim. So when I get them, there's a little thing on the top, and I usually use the paint that's on there to just paint the top of my lid. So this is Lost Shadow, which I haven't had before. It's one of the colours I'm filled in my gap. There we go. And then that can just go. I don't keep those because I don't live in a dry enough climate. The other new one on the table is this Uncharted Mariner. New to me, that is. I just need to remember not to open those flip tops by touching them because they need to do a bit of drying. So I'm going to set those aside for now. I've got various colours here that I enjoyed playing with when the announcement was made that they were coming back. Favourites of mine, Tumbled Glass and Pumice Stone, back in the mix so that I can afford not to hoard them, but to use them, because now I know I can get hold of them again. I do want some texture, so I'm going to do that. We'll do some without texture as well, but the texture ones can be drying while we play. And I've got a couple of different surfaces on the mat. These are my usual Manila tags, basically the same as the Ranger ones, which I used to source from a company in the UK who have now closed down, very sadly. This is the cheap bamboo sketchpad paper that I mentioned another time from Action Stores. Comes in a hardback book like that. This is not the same as the beautiful Hanamuller bamboo watercolor paper, which has a very smooth surface, beautiful to paint on. This is an altogether cheaper affair. It's slightly absorbent. It's not quite as joyful for using inks on, so I want to see if it'll play nicely with the paints. As it's a different formulation, as it's slightly less liquid, it might just do nice things. But let's get some texture on the go. So I've got some grunge paste here, and I've got some translucent grit paste, just because I like the variation of that. And I'm just going to quite loosely, quite easily smear some paste through these so that I've got loose texture. I don't want a perfect full coverage. I want kind of messy. And I even quite want to put a little bit more texture on than that. Let's do what would be fair for direct comparison would be to do one on each, wouldn't it, really? So this is the grunge paste going down on Manila. That was grunge paste going down on the bamboo. And then the other thing I very often like to do with this is just tap my knife up and down so that I am creating that extra bit of texture. Stencil doesn't have to be there to do that, as long as you keep it nice and flat. And what that gives me is just a kind of old plaster stucco kind of a look, as opposed to a fully smooth, beautiful, pristine effect, which, as you'll know, not something I'm very interested in. Beautiful, pristine. Right, set those aside. Let's have, I'm quite enjoying that stencil at the moment. just the look of it. I haven't, it's another PaperArtsy one. I will of course be listing ingredients down below. So let's here do a bit of a mix and match of texture pastes without getting too precious about it. Put a bit of that into the mix. So there's grunge paste and grit paste, excuse me, through that. And let's do some over here as well. I just want lots of surfaces to play on, really. You want to create multiples again, so that then I've got lots for playing with in future days. And making multiple backgrounds like this, to me, is just a good way of being able to come and craft when there's not much time. You can just grab a background and tell a story with it. I might leave those smooth rather than doing the patting on those. Rather tempted by... So these stencils want to go pretty soon into water, either a tray of water that you've got by your side, or if you're not going to wash them straight away, give them a spritz of water. I'm going to do a couple more pairs of tags, and with that spritz of water they should be fine waiting to go to the sink. I think I'd like some brick walls, my stony brick walls. Which one shall we have? Yeah, let's use what's on the palette knife. So I want this to go a bit further up the tag. I will let it rest on the bottom, because if you're going to build a wall, the bricks you want strongest are the ones down at the bottom there. A little bit of extra texture. And then I'm just going to kind of flip and reverse it so that I can build some extra wall heading up here. These were designed to be very crumbly, broken down, messy walls. That was the look I was after. But if you want to build a slightly taller wall, you absolutely can by flipping and moving it around. Nice crumbly bricks there. And maybe one last little corner up here. Again, just what's on the palette knife. And round the edge of the pot here. When you scrape, if you scrape texture paste back into a pot and scrape it around the rim, that's going to dry out really quickly. So use it right away. Let's join up that little bit with you in the middle there. So messy brick wall there. And let's do one of those on here too. I wonder how it would look if it went that way. It might look a bit weird, mightn't it? It is built. It's built to go this way. But, you know, explore, experiment. Maybe you want bricks tumbling, really tumbling down in a very broken kind of way. I'm going to continue the same way up rather than flipping. Just to get some more bricks on there. I think that's pretty good. Maybe one little one. I want that little one up there. Let's have you. Good. Lots of texture. I may do a couple more, just because I'm enjoying the idea of texture today. But you've seen what that is. So when I come back, I may give these a blast with the heat gun to dry them, which you absolutely can, or we might leave them to dry while we do some other things with distress paint. And that's our next port of call. Stencil washing time. One reason I'm quite keen on creating these kind of fairly subtle stony effects or sky effects is that coming into spring and summer, we're heading to florals and botanicals. These make a wonderful background for stems, for stamps, for those kinds of focal points. So yeah, I am sticking to those kinds of colour. Of course, you can go bright with these. There are lots of beautiful bright distress paints as well, but I'm mostly in a fairly neutral colour zone. A few turquoises, a little bit of sky, that kind of thing for this. We did do some vivid textured backgrounds the other day, not with distress paint, with other mediums. So I'll link to those if you want to go and get a shot of colour vivid colour for today rather than super subtle. So yeah, a couple of PaperArtsy stencils, this fabulous Tim Holtz one, which I just love. I did a pair again, and then rather than scrape my paster back into the pot, I did a scrapey version, so that's much less texture, much more background on that. Those can be drying while we do just a little bit of smooshing, gentle smooshing. So let's have a look at this. Tim did a brilliant video when he reintroduced these paints, just showing some ways that you can use these paints. Smooshing remains one of my favourites, but I thought I'd like to have a go with a little bit of sort of maybe some marbling, see if I can get a kind of marbling effect on these. Water is your ally with distress paints. They really want to play. So depending on how much water you use, where you put that water, you're going to get different kinds of effects when you add your paint to paper. They'll move around sort of almost like inks, which is a beautiful effect. This I can already feel is sitting on that bamboo paper in a different way than it's going to when I get onto here. You can add more paint to this mix on the mat, or you could just go with what's here. Smooshing remains one of my favourite things to do. So this is tumbled glass and pumice stone, by the way. We may add some more layers to it as we go. I might just mix those up so we're getting some of that. When you mix blues and greys, you very often get yourself a sort of bronzy green going on somewhere in it. Look at the striations and the patterns in that already. And then adding water allows that to move around. But that patch there, I'm not going to be able to shift, because on that paper, I don't think it really wants to move. Whereas where I've got a patch of paint here, that's sliding around on that Manila surface in a completely different way. Look at those drips and drops. So of course you can make drippy droppy kinds of effects with chalk paints, with regular acrylic paints, but they kind of mix and blend much more. These you get to keep seeing those colours. I might pick up what's left on here, just on this bamboo mat, bamboo tag, beg its pardon. Yeah, so unless I get right in there and move it, it's not very willing to play ball on this paper. There's nothing wrong with the effect I'm getting. It's quite nice. I quite like its earthiness, but we can put some more layers on that, because that blotch there is not making me happy. I'm going to go for one more smoosh through here. Might add in a bit of, maybe a bit more, maybe a dark in here. That's ground espresso. Again, I'm just going to let that move on. I mean, you can see already on the silicone craft mat, so any water resistant craft mat that you can clean up with, and I'm going to just slide through. That's quite fun. Let's see if we can get that to run down the page. There we go. So that's covering up that splotch. Now that there's a painty surface there, that paper is moving better. I like the darks on that. That's nice. Let's maybe add a little bit here. And this is playing. I can't be fully in control of what I'm getting. I can kind of assist when I see an effect happening that I like. For instance, those droplets, I can help them run further by giving them some more water. But I'm not fully in charge, and I think that's a really nice place to be with this kind of background, because you're just allowing what happens to happen and letting there be movement and mixing and gloopiness. Oh, look at those. The rivulets of colour are just a magic. Right, let's swoop into this. And again, just see what we get. So obviously a lot of the ground espresso there, but I can let that dry and give myself some other things later. Just pick up that little bit there. I need mop-up paper. I'm not wasting all that. So let's see. Are any of these dry already? I was just thinking I could go straight down in with some of these textures to pick up that and see what happens, but I'm going to need to dry this a little bit first. Ooh, I know, while we're here, let's do a quick little bit of, that's the other way I can use this, of course. That's Salvaged Patina going down, is, with some spatter. So this, where I can see it gathering on that side of the tag, I'm going to make it go on a journey again. So always be watching. That's one of the other keys. Be watching what's going on your other tags as they're drying. If you see something going on that you either want to put a stop to or you want to encourage, you need to be keeping an eye out so that you can let that happen. Quite enjoying those spatters of colour, so I may not even use this as a mop-up. I may just continue to spatter it in, and where they're going in very wet, into very wet paint, that will do a different thing than where they go in dry. So where that went into some very wet paint, it's spreading out beautifully. Where it went on drier, you get your little splatters and dots. I might get that bit to move around a little more, and I think I'm on a Manila tag here, so that should be possible. There it goes. Dribulets. Dribulets? Don't think that's a word. Dribbles and rivulets, that was a combination of. I love the kind of grey-green we've got there. So in fact, I think I will grab one more tag and pick it up. So this, in fact, is a quarter of smoothie paper. So let's just see what kind of effect we get there. You go on another journey, you little river. Dribulet. I think I'm going to adopt the word dribulet. I like it. So again, a different surface and a different kind of movement of the paint. It's quite watery now, what we've got on the mat, so it's not fair to expect it to behave in exactly the same way. Just looking at that and thinking I'd like that turquoise to go on a... Ooh, that was a good dribulet. They're definitely dribulets, aren't they? So the other thing is, if your paper is curling up, a little spritz of water on the back, I've mentioned this before, will just give you... Interestingly, the bamboo paper is not curling up. It's the Manila tags that are doing that. And then what I'm also going to do with some of what's on here is maybe paint it onto the textured surfaces. So yes, I do now, as I had just said that I was going to, I do now need to dry my texture paste a little bit and come back. I've given things a quick little blast with the heat gun. A couple of them are readier than others, mostly dry. Yeah, you can always tell with grunge paste, if it's still cool to the touch, it's still slightly moist, but it might not be a total issue. So as you can see, if I smoosh through this now, it's only going to make contact, or it's mostly going to make contact with the raised areas of the texture. So if I want to move paint into those background areas, that's why I wanted to paint some of this on before going too far, because I think this is a lovely background colour now, this mixture of colours that I've got on the mat. And then what we'll do is I'm going to smoosh through with some fresh colours to hit some of that texture. But I really like this kind of eggshelly, earthy colour. It's kind of eggshell grey, I suppose I would call it. It's got those hints of the blues, the tumbled glasses and the salvaged patinas. Yeah, it's so interesting. I mean, I know it's a different colour because the bamboo paper is paler than the Manila tag, but it's also just, as I'm playing, a completely different experience. how that paint moves around on the tag itself. Good, so I just wanted to show you that that's just me using up paint on the mat. I think I've probably gone about as far as I can with using up what's there. I could, well, look, see, got my smoothie card here, might as well pick up some of these. Oh, see, always do a mop up, always have something around that you can do a mop up on, because you never know, it might not end up being your favourite part of the day. It's not my favourite part of the day, but it's pretty good as a mottled background to play with. Give it a little spritz on the back so it doesn't curl up so much as it dries. And this I'm going to wipe up. Another quick little tip, when you're drying texture paste, grunge paste, it can be quite helpful to have a little go from the back, because then you're drying the underneath layers as well. If I only stick on the top here, then I'm drying the top, but underneath might still be a little bit, and I can still feel on the back of that tag that the grunge paste is kind of cool and therefore moist. But if I come in from both sides, then I'm getting all the layers of paste to dry. Just a little thought I thought I'd share, even over the top of the noise of the heat gun. Right, let's do some more smooshing. I really like these. They look like sort of old mouldy pond walls or something. I can't quite pin it down. Let's do some more turquoise and pumice stone, but this is a bolder turquoise, so this is the Salvaged Patina, and I think I'd like to have a little explore with the Lost Shadow, which, as I say, see, my pumice stone's running out. That's why I'm thrilled there's new pumice stone. So let's give this another little shake. Lost Shadow is the palest of pale greys. You may have encountered it in ink form. And it's a cool grey as well, as opposed to the pumice stone, which is a warm grey. So it just gives us something a little bit different to play with. This is going to be a nice little... That pumice stone you can see is quite old. I think that's why it's a little bit grainy. Distress paints for the most part are not grainy. If I open my new replacement pumice stone, I'm very sure it won't be grainy, but I'm not hating the texture it's giving me at the moment. So I'm going to stick with it. It may just be, as I say, because it's slightly old. So let's get some paint on here. And then, as I say, with water and a brush, I'm just going to nurse that paint down into the gaps, because in smooshing I can really mostly only hit. But this is, I mean, this is one of the joys of distress paint, is that as you do this and these colours kind of mix, you still keep the presence of each of those colours. I'm going to let that dry with a couple of judicious liftings of paint in places. Let's just leave that. Let's bring a little bit of water into this one. Water, as long as the distress paint is wet, water will move it. Once it's dried, it's going to stay put. So unlike distress inks, this is something that Tim was pointing out the other evening. It's longer ago than the other evening. It's certainly a couple of weeks now, but time is running away from me at the moment. Distress inks will always remain water reactive. Even after they've dried, you can come back, wet them and go again. Distress paints, once they've dried, they're there for good. So adjust while wet, I suppose, is the moral of that story. And then if I want to add a little bit more, see, look how beautifully fluid that is. It's sort of somewhere between an ink and a paint. It's magic. I just want to add on some places here just a little bit of extra specific colour. I love this stencil so much. It's called Wheel, but for me it will always be palette. it's a colour palette as far as I'm concerned. And then I could also encourage these to go for sort of drippy little journeys, but I think on this one I'm more interested if they stay in their own brick, as it were. that doesn't mean I can't do a little bit of spattering to create extra texture. And I'm also just keeping an eye over here on the ones I set aside to dry, the non-textured ones, because while I've got other paint on the mat, I can also choose to add a bit of that in spatters or driblets. That's just giving me some nice turquoise over that mottled one there. And I might come in for a little smoosh of this one we just did the mop up with, and have a look at how that wants to move on here. Oh look, lid's coming off my sprayer. Driblets and rivulets, dribbles and rivulets, and so on and so forth. I think that's quite good. Another thing you can do is just place one piece of paper down over this. It'll pick up some of the excess paint from there, and you'll get a print on both sides, varying. Yeah, I've definitely got an issue going on with my ancient pumice stone. I'm going to go for a spatter and then a soften. Grand, so we'll set those aside to dry again. Let's just move that around. Those are two nice ones. Right, let's go in for a smoosh of, I don't know. Yeah, no, let's add some purple. Purple? Turquoise. There we go. Ooh, good. And that's hitting where it hits. And then because I've got the texture, our driblets and rivulets are now going to run in between, which is really scrumptious. Again, water will help it move. The background has dried, so that's staying put. So these bits that I put over the top now are going to do a different kind of thing, layering over the background colour that's already there. That's magic. And that's on, yeah, that's on the bamboo paper. So that's a really good result. It's quite sturdy, this bamboo paper. It's quite impressive. Let's bring you in and go for a smoosh just to pick up what's on the mat. See, that's hitting the texture. If I want to get paint down inside, in between, then I'm going to need some more paint and some more water. So just hitting those top bits, and where there wasn't texture at all, obviously, the tag can reach the base. But I think I'm gonna stick to these turquoises. I do like it mixed with the Lost Shadow. It's giving it just a little mistiness as opposed to that real true turquoise. The Lost Shadow is giving us just this sort of little touch of, I'm trying very hard not to touch that lid because it's still wet. So this paint on plastic will take a while to dry. Leave it alone and let it get on with it. So let's wet these a little bit. And I'm going to bring them on with the brush this time, so that I'm in control, a little bit more control of where these are headed. At least for the starting point. So I'm going to get plenty of paint on that bit, and then I'm going to let it do some running in between the textures. Moving around. So pretty. See, on here, although, yeah, it will move on the bamboo too, but it's a different kind of movement. Fascinating. I do want some pumice stone. Can't be without my pumice stone. Thoroughly addicted. Maybe I should open the new pumice stone so that we can look at the difference of its fluidity. That's what comes of hoarding your supplies rather than using them, you see. Use your supplies, even though you thought you might never get any pumice stone ever again. That's why it was so hard to use it, because I didn't know if I could have it again. But of course that's silly, because in not using it, I wasn't showing the world how glorious pumice stone paint was, and therefore nobody knew that we needed it renewing. Again, the moral of the story, use your supplies. Yes, it's lovely to sit and stroke them, but use them. Taking that for a little dribble. And then what I might do is just, got lots of excess on there. I can feel how wet it is. I really like the back of that as well. And you can see how painty I'm getting. It's all good. All good. So I'm just depositing some of that extra fluid over onto this one. Let's take that in quite a subtle, because the texture on here is quite subtle. So I think it's going to be quite nice just letting the paint make its way around what there is, sticking where it'll stick. So you get one kind of texture on the texture and a different kind of look on the paper behind. I think it might be time for some flicking. Let's dry this a little bit. Come back into here, add a few splotches of colour in various places. Again, where it's still wet, that's going to melt into the surface, move into the watery surface that it's going onto. Where it's a bit drier, it's going to, that's very wet there. I do want to pull that up a little bit. So paper towel is another ally in that balance of how fluid things are. Water to make things more fluid, paper towel or a rag or a cloth to make things less fluid. And that's how you can get in and make things different. Gonna have to do another mop up, aren't I? Because this is a beautiful colour. This is sort of proper duck egg, eggshell, lovely mixture. So that was Lost Shadow and Tumbled Glass and Salvaged Patina on the mat, and that it's just a beautiful colour, so subtle but really worth having. Going to bring one of these other mop-ups back, fill in some of the gaps on there. I'm playing and I'm definitely having fun. That might be enough mopping up. I think some of those splotches are really watery. They're mostly not paint, they're mostly water. So I feel a bit better about mopping them up. So I think some of these need to do a bit of drying so that I can see if there's anything else I want to do with them. Some of these haven't yet got any paint on. So I'm definitely going to do a sort of greyish version for these stony walls. Let's start with Pumice Stone and Lost Shadow. I'm now thinking I should really open the new Pumice Stone. You can see right there, I hope, the difference between, and I've just gone and put my finger in it. Typical. That's because I was busy looking at what was going on here. You can see the difference between the lumpy Pumice Stone, which is not what you expect from your distress paint, and the completely fluid Lost Shadow that's going for a run around there. But as I say, I'm not averse to this for stone walls, because stone walls have texture. So I'm going to persevere for now, but I'm looking forward to opening my replacement Pumice Stone that I've bought. It was there to be backup when my Pumice Stone was finished, but it now turns out. So I'm going to go with a bit of that way of applying it first. You need to get water onto the bamboo paper fast. I've got a bit more time on the Manila. Let it run in between those bricks for a nice stoniness. And then you can bring in other mediums. We've used distress crayons lots of times to add extra texture after a paint has dried. And you can do exactly the same thing here. I love that. Slightly darker version, and I think we might get ourselves a little bit of ground espresso into here. Oh, that's quite a lot of ground espresso. See how mucky I'm getting. It's all fun. Right, let's use you straight away as a bit of spatter. because that's quite a nice randomization of how to apply it. And where it hits wet paint, it's going to move. Where it hits dry paint, it's going to stay put. So that gives us a lovely kind of grunginess without really having to do anything to it. And if you feel like it's too strong in places, get some water in there, and you can see immediately you get that beautiful softening, almost an inky softening. And I want that kind of running in between my bricks. So tipping and tilting. Let those driblets go. There they are, off on a run. Do I want to pick up? I think this smooshy one from earlier might benefit from a little bit of dark spatter in a couple of places. That's now almost dry, so that's getting nice little droplets of spatter. Let's have a look at some of these others, whether they might want something nice and dark. I like that, but again, I think it could be interesting. Apologies, too excited by what I'm doing to be checking whether I'm on camera. This one, really interesting effects on this one. The smoosh of that on that bamboo paper, a very different look. And again, that's going on dry, so those spatters should stay spattered. It's just a nice randomness. These ones, I don't like the dot of that, so I'm going to, again, just soften using the brush. And if it's too much, just knocking it back. Because I sort of like the simplicity of that one, really. I'm enjoying them, funnily enough, I'm enjoying them as dots on this one. Everything's could you see how floppy that paper was? That's the bamboo paper, really floppy with moisture. That's quite interesting. This, I'm going to pick up some of this brown. Not so interested in the brown as I thought I would be over the stones. And it picks up more easily, again, off that Manila tag than it does off this one. But I can come back in with some more of the greys and layer it up if I dry them. Right, I'm going to give all of these a good dry so that I can then come and see if I want to add any more detail, difference. I'm yearning for, yeah, I'm yearning for tumbled glass on these. Really interesting. My whole being is crying out for some tumbled glass. So I'm going to have some. And I'm going to try and, yeah, it will hit the texture. But everything's so wet now. And then I can also go in with my already painty finger to just decide where I want that turquoise to hit. So here, there's no texture for it to go over. So it's doing one kind of thing, and I can create texture in it. If I hit the bricks, then I can choose to add that turquoise in the places I want it. Individual bricks. Just catching the sun. Fun. Grand. I said I was going to clear up, didn't I? And dry things. I will do that. I think we're mostly dry, and some of these were very wet, so that's saying something. Now, I can add additional colour to these, obviously, by using some more distress paint. That's very easily done. I quite like finger painting, because then I can choose and really get sort of in touch with the texture that is around on here, and I can pick out individual little bubbles. If you're not sure about doing this, you can absolutely lay the stencil back over and bring that into play. You could also do this with a distress crayon. You know that we've added texture to texture, or at least highlighted texture using distress crayons in the past, which I like to just rub over And just, I mean, look what that gets you. So a contrast to all that lovely smooshy, delicate paint blended effect. Where's my brain? You're now picking out, and I can see that's hitting bits of grit paste. It's hitting where I tapped my palette knife to get extra texture. So that can happen with as much or as little colour as you want. That's coming on with, oh, I thought that was Salvaged Patina. It turned out to be Evergreen Bough. Not sure I want Evergreen Bough in the mix, so I'll come over with some Speckled Egg and just hit some of those. But you can also come back in, as we have done, with some spatter, anything like that. I'm just thinking I quite like some of this on this bit of texture here, so I'm just going to hit those edges. And this is the one where it's a very light scraping of texture because it was just the leftovers, but I think there's something quite nice about just adding, helping the eye to see, therefore, some of those bricks on that one, areas of the wheel. I think that's quite fun. And we might take some of it into this one as well. I think it'd be quite nice to just beef up a bit of this turquoise in places. Those spatters are now dry, so this is layering over the top of those spatters. That's really pretty. Just creating more variation in some of these palette areas over the texture. Shifting and changing. Where else would we like some? Quite like some on some of these bricks. Just make those a bit more definite. So where I've got that crayon, if I go over with moisture, the crayon will soften as well. Nice. You could do edging with inks, so you can absolutely at this stage bring in something like maybe walnut stain and go with a kind of flat inking across your texture. That'll add colour in places. It might be quite nice on this one. So just coming in with a blending tool, inked up. Don't press down too hard because then you'll get down in between. But if you want it around the edges, that's still quite moist, that tag. For all that drying I just did, that tag is still quite moist. So that's another way to add detail to what's going on. Just hit the edges of some of those. You can do dry brushing, which is to get, see, these could do with highlighting. So if I get some paint on my brush, you want quite a little, what colour do I want? I don't think I want the brown. Maybe let's have a look at, this is the colour we haven't used. Oh, I was going to use my new Uncharted Mariner, wasn't I? So a little dot of that. And you want quite a scraggly brush for this. And you want the paint to be barely there on the brush. So you get paint onto the brush and then you knock paint off the brush and then come in at an angle so that you're hitting the edges of the texture. And then you can come back in the other direction. There's still quite a lot of paint on my brush, so it's hitting the paper in between as well. But that's just bringing that texture into the foreground of my attention. Coming in from lots of directions, as you can see. Oh, I like that Uncharted Mariner. I do love Uncharted Mariner. So you can see the difference, I hope, between those two, where it's hit some of the edges and you get a look at that texture. And on here, where we haven't yet, let's take it off. just bringing attention to the texture that we bothered to put on there. So we might as well let people know it's here. So playtime. And then of course any areas where you've got clear card, you could come in with some stamping. Any areas where you've got nice strong texture, you can stamp onto the texture. All kinds of effects you can create. And what I'm really quite tempted by now is the idea of doing a little bit of, so you can also dry brush with distress paints so that you get that brush texture. You just need your brush to be very dry with them. Quite liking the idea of doing a bit of spattering with that dark blue. Maybe have some of these mop-ups or splotches. Oh look, ooh look. Maybe we want a little bit of that Uncharted Mariner in action on here. So this is now a wetter version. Just adding shadow. Not dry brushing, but adding to the surface. That's quite fun. Can we get a little spatter of this going? Let's have a look at it. Yeah, that's cool. And then again with spatter, if you've got too much going on, just a little dab with the paper towel, knock it back. Oh. So much pigment in that colour, but that's a very cool grunginess there. I like that. I like it as a softening effect. With the softening effect, I don't want it too full on. So much you can do with these paints. I'm going to stop because I have to stop sometime. But yeah, in a future episode, maybe we'll do some stamping on these. We'll almost certainly do some collaging over some of these. I'm really tempted to give this one some spatter. Maybe turquoise rather than... Oh, hello. Need a bit more water to get it work. Maybe a mix. Oh, look at that colour. That's beautiful. There it is. Who else wants that colour? Some of these mop-ups. Grand. I am about to come in for a close-up so you can see some of the extraordinary effects and details in these painty textured tags. But I hope you've enjoyed that little bit of exploration today on different paper surfaces, just finding out what goes on with the distress paints when they hit them. I will leave details of what I've been using in the description down below, and I said I'd link to the vivid texture background, didn't I think. Thank you as always for your company. Comments, thoughts, questions, very welcome down below the line. The journey would not be the same without you. If you've enjoyed this, do give me a thumbs up. If you're not already subscribed, we would love to have your company on this creative journey. Thanks so much for watching, everyone, and happy crafting all.